Afrobeats has become one of the most powerful cultural markers of the modern era. It's not just a sound. It's not just a genre. It's a living identity, a moving story, and a shared language for millions of people across the world. When people talk about culture, they often think about food, traditions, clothing, or history. But in reality, culture is also carried through rhythm. It's shaped by sound, and Afrobeats has become one of the most important tools through which Africans and the African diaspora express who they are, where they come from, and what they represent in a global world that is constantly shifting. To understand the role of Afrobeats in cultural identity, you have to understand that music has always been central to African life. Long before streaming platforms, long before clubs, long before the global music industry, African communities used rhythm to tell stories, preserve history, and connect people. The drums were a way of speaking. The melodies were a way of remembering. Every festival, every ceremony, every celebration had its own sound. So Afrobeats, in many ways, is a continuation of something ancient. It's the modern expression of a cultural rhythm that has existed for centuries. But what makes Afrobeats unique is the way it has repositioned African identity in the modern world. For decades, Africa was misunderstood. Western media often painted it with one brush: poverty, struggle, conflict, scarcity. But Afrobeats challenged that narrative without needing a speech or an argument. It used sound. It used joy. It used creativity. Suddenly, the world began to see Africa through a different lens, not as a place of lack, but as a place overflowing with artistry, confidence, innovation, and soul. When people in Toronto, London, Paris, New York, Sao Paulo, Melbourne, or Amsterdam dance to Afrobeats, they're not consuming a stereotype. They're consuming a culture that Africans proudly define for themselves. For Africans in the diaspora, Afrobeats plays an even deeper role. Identity becomes complicated when you grow up far from your roots. People born outside the continent often feel like they're living between two worlds, African at home, Western outside. Their names, their accents, their hair, their values, their food, their traditions, everything becomes a negotiation. But Afrobeats gives them a cultural space where they don't have to choose. When the music plays, they don't feel less African or less connected. They feel seen. They feel included. They feel a sense of belonging that doesn't require them to prove anything. It restores confidence in identity without demanding perfection. Afrobeats tells young Africans in the diaspora that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be both. It's okay to be from Toronto but still understand the melody of home. It's okay to not speak your mother tongue perfectly but still feel the rhythm in your bones. It's okay to blend cultures, to create new identities, to define yourself instead of letting the world define you. The music becomes a safe space to exist authentically. And that spiritual comfort is one of the most powerful roles Afrobeats plays in shaping cultural identity. Another layer to this identity building comes from representation. Seeing African artists on global stages inspired a new level of pride. When Burna Boy sells out stadiums, it sends a message to millions of African youth worldwide. Your culture deserves this spotlight. When Wizkid performs at the O2, when Davido tours arenas, when Tiwa Savage, Tems, Ira Star, and Rema dominate charts, African identity becomes aspirational. And when global superstars like Drake, Beyoncé, Ed Sheeran, and Justin Bieber collaborate with Afrobeats artists, it reinforces the idea that African culture is not just local. It's global. It's influential. It's leading. Cultural identity is also shaped by language. Afrobeats has helped revive the use of African languages outside the continent. People who never grew up in Lagos know what beast means. People in Europe dance to lyrics in Yoruba, Igbo, Twi, Pidgin, and Hausa without hesitation. African slang has traveled across continents through music. Kids in the diaspora who struggle with speaking their parents' languages suddenly find themselves repeating phrases from songs effortlessly. Music becomes a teacher. It becomes a cultural reminder. It becomes a bridge. Identity is also shaped through dance. Afrobeats dances are not just trends. They're expressions of African storytelling. Moves like shaku, azanto, gwara gwara, zanku, and kupa become global phenomena. Children in South America, Europe, Asia, and North America learn Afrobeats choreography even if they know nothing about the culture behind it. For Africans in the diaspora, watching the world learn their dances brings a sense of pride that goes beyond entertainment. It's like reclaiming cultural space in a world that once ignored African creativity. Dance allows people to wear their identity on their bodies, literally. Another powerful role of Afrobeats in cultural identity comes from community building. Afro-focused events, day parties, concerts, block parties, brunches, nightlife scenes have become cultural meeting points. These spaces allow Africans from different countries, languages, and backgrounds to feel united under one sound. Ghanaians, Nigerians, Congolese, Kenyans, Ethiopians, South Africans, everyone comes together under the energy of Afrobeats. And in places like Toronto, this unity becomes even more important. Many African communities in the diaspora are small, scattered, or isolated. But when an Afrobeats event happens, people come out. They meet each other. They form friendships, relationships, collaborations, and lifelong connections. Music becomes a cultural home. It becomes a community that people can step into anytime they feel disconnected. Afrobeats also shapes identity through storytelling. African artists talk about love, struggle, growth, ambition, joy, and spirituality in ways that reflect the African lived experience. Even when the lyrics sound simple, they carry deeper cultural context. Lines rooted in proverb, metaphor, humor, and folklore remind listeners of the richness of African storytelling tradition. And because the music travels globally, the world gets to hear those stories too. Identity becomes something shared rather than hidden. Another important element is confidence. Afrobeats gave Africans worldwide permission to be proud of themselves. It made being African cool. It turned traditional fashion into global fashion. It influenced hairstyles, slang, attitude, and lifestyle. Before Afrobeats went global, many Africans in the diaspora felt pressure to downplay their identity to fit in. But once the world started celebrating the music, it became easier to embrace the culture openly. Suddenly, kids who once felt embarrassed bringing jollof rice to school now post it proudly online. People who once hid their accents now speak with confidence. Being African became something to celebrate, not something to hide. Afrobeats also shapes identity through ambition. Seeing African creatives succeed globally inspires a new generation of dreamers. Producers, songwriters, dancers, designers, videographers, DJs, stylists, and entrepreneurs are all finding their place within the Afrobeats ecosystem. It shows younger Africans that they don't have to limit themselves. They can be international. They can be innovative. They can shape culture instead of always consuming it. The music becomes a gateway to possibility, and that mindset shift becomes part of identity. What's also remarkable is how Afrobeats allows people to carry their culture into spaces where it was once invisible. Whether it's someone wearing African prints at a festival, speaking pidgin among friends, throwing Afrobeats events on university campuses, or forming Afro student associations, these actions build identity through expression. Afrobeats becomes both a soundtrack and a catalyst. Afrobeats is more than a genre. It's a reminder, a celebration, a bridge, a cultural heartbeat. And as long as that rhythm continues, the identity of the African diaspora will remain strong, confident, and connected. Thank you for watching, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.